Here we are with Volume 2, Page 2 of the Sow's Ear Chronicles. I've started tearing down. I've taken out part of the lining. Good things. I find the steeking's been done well. The inner strap, the left hip strap, was sewn through and through to the canvas, but the canvas is in 3 pieces. It's not even attached. And neither of the upper buckles are sewn through and through to the canvas, and neither are the right-hand straps. They're just sewn to the tartan, which isn't sewn to the canvas. So fair amount of stretch there. So we're gonna do that right. They have actually, it does look like they have used a sewing. Is that a sewing machine or is it hand sewn? No, okay, that's either a sewing machine or incredibly neatly hand sewn. But in any case, it's all salvageable. I haven't run into any dead ends, as it were. So I'll finish ripping it down, take out the canvas, take off the top band, and then report back. Here we are. It's, I don't know, an hour later in the Sow's Ear Chronicles. I've unpicked from the apron back to what is now going to be my first pleat. 13 on either wrong. Let me, anyhow, it's reduce the number of pleats to increase the width, or to increase the proper proportion, I should say, of the width of the apron to the measurements of the individual. So I haven't opened this seam yet, but I'm going to open it up to just past the red line here, because that's where my new buttonhole is going to be. I'm dropping the buttonhole down, which will have the net effect of shortening the kilt, because again, as I've mentioned before, it'll raise the entire kilt relative to the natural waist. So that's going to be Mr. Buttonhole right there. These belt loops are immense, and I have to think that they were installed to hold a black, the big black waist belt, the Piper's waist belt that's so cliche. Unfortunately, they're really far apart. They're almost on the side of the person's figure. If this was a clock ray with your front of your nose being 12 o'clock, these things would be at about 4 and 8. They're very far apart. So I'm going to talk to the client and frankly see if I can see how wedded, how attached he is to these things, because I want to talk him out of them, because a properly fitted kilt doesn't need belt loops. And in any case, the loops are only really necessary for that percentage of the population who needs them, the very large and the very thin, the emaciated, skinny thin. They're only needed for the sporran strap, but only for those who need them. So I've undone 2 pleats on that side. I've undone 4 pleats on this side back to, so we're an even number of pleats either side of the center line. I think it's 13 a side, and this one makes 27 pleats. Now, I'm going to press flat all of the creases to the left of this line and all of these over here so that I can reshape the aprons. What I find remarkable, again, is the astounding level of craftsmanship that the person who made this kilt had. The stitching is, frankly, the stitching is a lesson to me. It's so very good. It's so very fine. But again, that plus again these pleats, which are mental. See, this pleat is laid out and there's 1 chalk mark. So there's that pleat that pleat. This pleat is kind of in the right spot. It's in the middle of the 2 lines. But this pleat, he or she has gone back to the right-hand pleat, the right-hand red line, when they should have actually, this left-hand red line should have been visible. So that plus one other thing, the fact that as I was unpicking these seams, I'm not just unpicking, there's not just 2 layers of cloth sewn together, because usually when you're sewing the kilt, you start at the left hip side and you work your way around to the right hip side, and you fold a piece of cloth over, you fix it in place, and you sew it. So you're sewing through these 2 pieces of cloth. But all of these pleats that I've unpicked, there's an extra layer of cloth sewn. So what that leads me to believe is that this person started sewing on this side first and sewed their way in the reverse of the usual practice. And they did that. It's the only way I can explain that they've picked up another layer of cloth as they were sewing. But the fact that that tells me that they didn't receive any instruction at all. But in spite of that, they produced this absolutely superior outside face. And again, they're stitching, the workmanship blows me away. It's my hat is off to them. But the fact that apparently they started sewing from the wrong end and still made it look perfect tells me that this is an extremely talented tailor who did all of this on the power of observation. I don't think this person received any instruction at all. It's a pity because it created this person a lot of extra work, but to their very great credit, and I emphasize that, their very great credit, they managed to do a more difficult task, but the end result is in a superior fashion. So hats off to them, but that poor person wound up doing a lot of extra work. So from here, I'm going to press that flat, and then I'm going to start planning how I'm going to lay up these aprons and carry on with it. So, and again, I'm going to try to talk him out of those loops because they're silly. Cheers. Bye. Okay, I just got to make a record of this because this is just too darned impressive. This unknown tailor, again, working entirely without, as far as I can tell from the evidence, working entirely without instruction, has done a really elegant job with the A-line, that each of these is a little origami fold, and each one of them's different. Each one of them is slightly different. This one, that one's a bit, no, it's sort of the same, but this one's a bit different too. And they've all, and this person's talented enough that they managed to do it without having this sort of unsightly, or not unsightly because you can't really see it, but you can feel it doubling up. You don't feel a step there, or at least not much of one. I freely admit I'm no good at these, or at least I don't believe I'm any good at these, because I'm never satisfied with how there's extra cloth in there that I can feel. And once I've felt it, I'm convinced that I feel it every time, right? But this person has apparently on their own. I mean, they've definitely reinvented the wheel because other people do it. But this person has come up with it on their own because each one of these is slightly different and they all work. So again, I continue to be impressed by this person. So I've, since the video of a few minutes ago, I opened this seam and I've put in the buttonhole and then sewn it up again. The only thread that I had, which is of the correct color, is 100% silk, because it's a little too difficult to whip down to the store, which is downtown in any case, to get extra thread. So I've got 2 full spools of this. So it looks like this kilt's going to be entirely sewn in silk. Yay.